Hey guys, Farid here, and today I'm going to be doing an overview of my track Illusionary, which is out now on Beatport through Enhanced Music as part of the Enhanced Chill Volume 3 compilation. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure you do. I'm also doing this overview as a thank you for reaching 1,000 fans on my Facebook page. It took a long time, a few years, but well, I'm finally there. And as a thank you, I'm doing this, and I'm also going to be putting out a free mashup. So make sure to check my Facebook page for that. So in this overview, I'm going to be talking about a few things about the project. First of all, I'm going to be talking about what inspired me to to start this project, how it came together, and I'm pretty much going to go through it step by step and sound by sound to show you guys how I got the sound I did on the track. Um, Now, I think those who know my music know that I don't really make chill out that often. I usually do mostly uplifting and some progressive trance as well. So this was a bit of a challenge to actually get a chill out track finished. And surprisingly, the biggest challenge in this track wasn't actually the main part. That is the beat here with all the melodies and stuff. It was actually the intro and the outro, and the main reason behind that is because I haven't really had much experience with chill out, and coming up with melodies isn't too hard, regardless of genre. However, the way you lead up to those melodies and out of them does depend on genre, and which is why I had the biggest trouble coming up with an intro and an outro for this. However, I am satisfied with the result, and I am very proud of this track. And the biggest thing I learned about making chill out is that it really depends on effects, atmospheric effects mainly, to fill out the sides, to fill out just to give a little more life to the track, above all the melodies and sounds that I've used. Just some effects coming in and out does make the world of a difference. And as you can see here, I did use quite some effects. I mean, it doesn't look like that many, but they do come in and out pretty often, and they do add a lot of flavor to the track, in my opinion at least. So before we get started, I'm just going to play bits and pieces of the track just so you can get an idea of what it sounds like, and then we'll take it step by step through the sounds that I've used and all the melodies done. So I'll play a bit of the intro, a bit of the beat, and a bit of the outro, and hopefully you'll get an idea of the track. And once again, you can check it out in full either on YouTube or on Beatport. And a little bit of the beat here. And finally, the outro. All right, so yeah, it's pretty short. It's only about 4 minutes long, four and a half, yes, just around. Yeah, that's usually average chill out track length. So it wasn't, I mean, didn't take too long to make. It was probably my fastest project at about 32 hours, which to some is still a lot. But anyways, let's just get started with the sounds, excuse me, with the sounds that I've used, and yeah. So first for the kick, I only have I think one pattern for the kick. Yeah, that's it. And in short, the pattern sounds like this. All right, so it's somewhat of a breakbeat influence, along with some groove and Yeah, it's not a standard chill out beat. Has a little bit of uh maybe an R&B or hip hop vibe to it as well. Some say, but anyways, it's just a kick sample from the Kobana, I think, Progressive House Essentials pack. I honestly didn't know where to start looking for chill out kicks, and I just started looking through the packs that I've had, and I found that this one had the click or the punch that I needed, along with all the low end that is needed to give it a little more depth in the mix. And I only put an EQ on it just to take off some mids because it is a pretty mid heavy kick, and boosted the low end a little bit. Just some compression, attack, so just envelope or transient shaping, just to give it a little bit more attack or click. It's only at about zero point 0.5 dBs, so extra. And lastly, I put an EQ just to boost the gain. Um, Now, the reason I put an EQ here is, or a gain here is because, and not in this EQ, is because I think putting the gain up before it goes into the compressor and the attack does make a difference, rather than just boosting the final result. And I felt that the actual chain made the kick sound great. It just needed a bit more volume, so I just put some volume after the kick, after sorry, the other effects, and got it where it needed to be pretty much. Next up is again same kick, just with some reverb for transitions, such as here. Let's just solo this. So as you can hear, there's quite some reverb on there, and I put just a pretty. It's pretty much the same chain as the regular kick. I just added a notch filter. Well, I called it a notch filter, and I ended up taking out this band here. The reason being, I thought the regular kick as it was for that transition had a little too many highs. So I took some highs off, and I also took some low end off because reverb kicks tend to have a lot of low end, and low end after reverb does sound pretty can get pretty muddy. So I have to take down some low end to keep it a little bit more tight and stable. And I should probably delete that. And I took some gain down because again the volume of the kick just for that transition was a bit too much, so I ended up taking it down. And this is the reverb send that I've used for the kick. It only has just an arts acoustic. As you can see, the settings are here. So pretty big reverb. No attack. So I mean, well, slow attack, fast attack. So the reverb comes in right away, and I kept the spread 0 because I didn't want the reverb to be too wide. I just wanted it to be a little subtle, just to ease the transition, but at the same time be present. And in EQ, as always, I tend to EQ my reverb sends, and I actually just put a little dip on the low end because, again, it can get pretty muddy, so I just had to take some off. Next up is the sidechain. For the sidechain kick, again, it's the same one. I think it's just, yeah, I usually decrease the hold time. So, yeah, just the whole time to make it a little bit snappier. Um, because usually I tend to take out the low end from my sidechain triggers and just leave the click part, the initial attack. And obviously, there's nothing on there. Now, for the clap, I used, let's see. Again, the same pack, Kobana Progressive House Essentials. It's just one layer because I think it's a chill out track, so you don't need a huge sound or a huge percussion line. And this is what it sounds like. So there's quite some reverb on that as well. And again, there's a reverb sent, but before we go there, I just EQ'd it again, gave it a little boost, and just a high cut, low cut at 300 hertz. Now that I think of it, I actually just put these gain boosts because when I sent the track in for mastering, it had too much headroom actually, which usually isn't the case. But it had about, I think, 16 dBs of headroom, which is quite a lot and can be a problem for some mastering engineers. So I ended up putting an EQ on each track individually rather than putting a gain EQ on the master, just to make sure it sounds as good as possible. And I boosted however much I think needed boosting to get it up to about 7 or 6 dBs of headroom. So if you see gain EQs, it's just because of that. Again, so going back to the clap reverb, these are the settings. Again, some pretty long decay. However, I did want the reverb to be bright to come through a little bit more. So I increased the spread to 100 to the max pretty much. And as you can see, the other settings are pretty straightforward. I usually tend to put a low high ratio on my reverbs. It's because you tend to get some hiss from the highs of the reverb, and to decrease that, you just need to bring down the decay. For those who don't know what this does, basically you have your decay time here, and you have your low, mid, and high ratio. Now, as you can see here, there are certain margins for this. Now, the 132 from 0 hertz to 132 is controlled by this. From 132 to 6580 is controlled by the mid, and everything higher than that is controlled by the high. And usually above, I'd say between 4, 5, or 6,000 hertz, you tend to get hiss from the reverb. So I usually, depending on the sound, I put the decay of the sound low for the highs. And what these numbers mean pretty much is these are multiples of the decay, meaning from 0 to 132, it'll decay for 1 times this. So it'll decay for the exact amount of seconds that I have. Same for the mid part here, but for the highs, it'll only decay for 0.17 times this. So it'll only be for about 0.8 seconds or so. Maybe a bit higher than that. So it'll be a very short decay for anything above 6580, and that tends to take out a lot of the hiss problem that you face when you have big reverb on sounds. Moving on to the hi-hats. First we have a closed hi-hat. Again, same pack. I guess I use this one a lot. Yeah. So yeah, here's what it sounds like. Now, as you can see, I did take out a lot of the tail at the end because it was a bit too long as it was. So I shortened it a little bit just for it to fit the beat and the BPM. And on it, we just have an EQ with a low cut, pretty standard. These values aren't really specific. What I usually do is I usually start with a high cut, and I see where the sound starts to get to change, and just below that I will leave the filter, and I will change that to a low cut, and that's that. So let's just put that into an example very quickly. I'll start out with this, let's say 200, and I'll make this a high cut. As you can see, nothing's coming through right now, so you start changing this. And as you can see, now you can start hearing a little bit of the sound. So that's a little bit too much, so I'll bring that down. So I felt that 1000 was, where if I go higher, it would take away a lot from the bottomness of the sound. So I left it there. And it's actually sidechained, and the reason behind that is because it plays at certain points, it plays on top of the kick. And it has a lot of high end, so it can conflict or mask some of the high kick frequencies. So I sidechained that to allow the kick to come through well. And this is what the actual closed hi-hat sounds like. Why is this not playing? Oh, there we go. So as you can see, it does have quite some high end. Along with the sidechain, this is what it does. So as you can see, there's quite some bit taken down from the attack of the hi-hat. Here are the settings for the sidechain, and with the kick, this is what it sounds like. Now if I turn off the sidechain, this is what it would sound like. So you can hear they're fighting a little bit. Without the sidechain, there's a little bit of frequency fights going on. So had to sidechain that a little bit. And coming to the shakers, Oh, we missed the open hi-hat. Now for the open hi-hat, I used something from VEC4, Vengeance. I shifted the actual pitch up a little bit. I think that was, yeah, 100. Because I felt that the original sample was a bit too low in terms of key. I don't usually tune all my perks or drums to key, but for this one, I did feel like pitching it up made a big difference, and this is what it sounds like. So actually, the note length differs here. I have one short hit and then a longer hit and then a short hit and then a longer hit. And the reason is it just gives a little bit more movement to the drum line. And you can hear I had some delay on it. Obviously, chill out is a pretty ambient genre. Well, this is what I was going for in my mix anyway. So there's a lot of effects going on, a lot of stuff blending in the atmosphere at the background. So here we have um, some just classic delay with some just standard settings, honestly, nothing fancy. I just pulled up the low cut all the way up because I didn't want any of the low frequencies to come through. Obviously, delayed low frequencies when delayed can be again a bit muddy, so I had to take down some of that. And just some EQ. Again, just a high cut. I'm sorry, a low cut, and just a boost of the highs, just to make it come through a little bit more. Now moving on to the shakers, the last of the drum line. We have two shakers, and they are the same sample, I believe. So XF. So that's from the Deadmau5 Xfer pack, and this one is also it's the same one. Now what I did was I just panned each of them to one side. Well, not fully, not hard panning, just a little bit. So this is about 60, 70%. And this one is 70% to the left. The other one's to the right. And the reason is it just gives a little bit more groove with the other hi-hats. Now, the full perk line pretty much sounds like, or the full hi-hats sound like this. Now let's turn on the metronome here. 1 second, just so you can know how it would sound. Or let's just turn on the kick. So as you can hear, they do add a lot of groove to the drum line, and it's just a standard offbeat for the first shaker. The second one is every fourth beat in a bar, um, in a measure, that is, sorry. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the drum line. Now, next up, we move on to the actual sounds that I've used, and this is where things get a little bit interesting, and I think I spent the most amount of work here. That and effects. So we start off with the first pad, which sounds like this. So pretty big, and with some nice reverb and delay. I think, yeah, delay here and some reverb as well. Now I think this one is Nexus. It does sound like Nexus. Yeah, just a standard pad. I usually turn off all the effects from synths. I usually like to add my own effects, just have a little bit more control. And also, I'm used to using these effects, so I kind of know them in and out to some extent. So I'm more just comfortable using those. So yeah, as you can see, just a standard preset, and on it I just put some delay first. Again, take up the low cut a little bit to take out the lows from the delay, and again just some EQ. Now, if I take now, as you can see, there's a high cut here actually. The reason being, I felt that there was a little too much, also some hissing from this pad, and some just a there's a too much, I'd say, white noise to this preset. So I just had to take it out a little bit because it just would mask the other high instruments. Now let's hear what it sounds like with and without. So here's what it sounds like with. So I'm pretty sure you can hear the difference there. Without the high cut, it has quite some more wide noise to aspect to it, and if I leave that in the mix, it's just gonna cloud things up. Especially that I have some pretty big and long reverb on it. And here again, it's just the gain and just a sidechain here. Moving on to pad number two. I think it might be also another Nexus. Yeah, there we go. It has some cutoff automation though, and I think this has more of a vocal aspect to it, a choir pad sort of. And here's what it sounds like. All right, so as you can hear, it's pretty big and it does have, I think it is somewhat of a choir pad or a vocal pad, you can say. And as you could hear, it was shifting a little bit from side to side. So it's moving somewhat between left and right, and the reason being just because I wanted to fill out the stereo field, because this pad is just, it does have ping pong delay, but at the end of the day, this pad is just centered, while this pad just moves from side to side, just gives things a bit more movement. So I started with an EQ, and it's a little bit messy in here, but those who watched my resonating frequencies tutorial would know what this is. Basically, I just took down frequencies that were a bit too harsh to the ear and that were more present than others in the mix, especially with the reverb that I put on this delay. So yeah, I just took it down and I just boosted the high end a little bit. And as you can see, this is just a low cut again to take out the low end. So again, nothing fancy, just to take down the harsh frequencies, just some compression, and I've been using this a lot recently for the past couple of projects. This is where the panning or the auto panning rather comes from. I Here I set the rate so it moves 75% to the right, from 75% to the right to 75% to the left in 2 bars. So every 2 bars it moves this a full cycle pretty much. And I didn't change anything else. So this is what I used this plugin for in this channel. And again, just a gain and sidechain. Now let's take a look at the reverb. Once again, just standard. I tend to use this preset a lot. However, for each sound, I do tweak it differently, depending on how I want it to sound in the mix. So this one has a little bit of a longer decay, and both pads are routed to it. Again, I gave it very slightly longer high frequency decay. Spread is set to 100 because I want the reverb sounding wide, and that's about it. Honestly, it's pretty standard. The other settings are how they were when I loaded this preset. Now for the EQ of the reverb send, again taking down some resonant frequencies and just giving a very small boost to the high end. As you can see, my numbers are pretty round, so I'm have a little bit of an OCD there, and just sidechaining the reverb of the reverb send for more control and to give it a bit of a cleaner sound. Now moving on to more pads, I have the texture. Well, let's just move in order. We have the keys. Oops. Okay, yeah, there we go. Keys. That's the main lead you hear in this part of the track. So let me show you that. So as you can hear, it is pretty big. Sounds pretty big. Again, reverb delay, and I believe this is just another Nexus preset. I used a lot of Nexus in this track. Yep. just a standard Nexus preset, turned off the effects, and however, I did turn off the release I see there. I guess I felt because with the release on, just the default value, it was a bit too long for my taste. The notes were a bit long, so I shortened the release of the sound a little bit. And as you can see, it's just some EQ, resonant frequencies, just a dip because I felt it had too much high end in the nature of the sound itself compared, I mean, within the context of the entire mix. Some ping pong delay, as you can hear, and just some compression, some pretty heavy compression, I think. And, the notes are pretty straightforward, just single notes. But here I just have a harmony between two notes, and I think this one is the higher velocity, higher volume, and this one comes through a bit lower. So that's what it sounds like. Alright, so as you can hear the two notes individually, but one comes through more than the other. Now moving on to the next sound. We have the bass pad, and this is just my standard bass pad. I don't want to give out too much because this is one of my sounds, but it has some portamento on it. It is silent, and the note lengths here, I usually add a little bit more to every note, just so the transition to the next note is smooth with the portamento or glide, depending on the synth. And this one, I used just an EQ on it. Just an EQ, yeah, just a high cut a little bit because just a low cut because I felt the nature of the sound had too much lows, and I did want to go for a lighter atmosphere, so I had to take a little bit of the subby low end off. Now just here, I think there was a resonant note in the bass pad, in the progression, so I just took down that note here. So nothing fancy. Again, just probably gain and a sidechain to pump with the beat. Next up, we have the second bass pad, and the reason being is just a volume change. This one I used for the outro. This one I used for the rest of the track. So as you can hear, outro bass pad. Just use it for the outro. Same preset, same settings, just a lower volume. I was too lazy to automate the volume, so I just made a new one. Again, it's routed to the same channel, so there's no need to go over this again. Now we move on to the second lead I have in the second part. So I have two leads, one being for these two for this section for half of the beat part, and the second beat part has the lead that I played earlier, which is the longer one right here, and this is what it sounds like. And I've used the sound before in some of my tracks, Sun Gaze and Afloat. It's just a preset that I tweaked, just silent. I left the EQ on because I felt it did give it made the sound cut through a bit more. Although I do have an EQ on there as well. There's some pitch modulation on there as well to make the sound have a bit more of an attack. So. Whereas if it didn't have this, it would just be a little bit smoother, and I wanted the initial attack of the sound to cut through a little bit more, so I just gave it some pitch modulation here, and it is just there's just some EQ here, resonant frequencies, and there was quite some white noise similar to what I experienced with the pad on the sound, so I had to add a low shelf to cut it down. I did not add a high cut because I felt that took away too much from the sound, so I just left it as a high shelf, and it worked for me. For those interested in hearing how it sounds with and without. So you do hear quite a difference there, and again, if it was an uplifting or a more energetic track, I would take this out. but for a more chilled vibe, I don't want it to have to take too much space in the mix, so I just took that down. Again, just some compression on there, some delay, again pushed up the low cut, just pretty standard honestly, and gain, sidechain, so pretty standard. Um, Now we move on to the set of pads, which I've used in the intro. They're more for texture. And let's see, texture pad. Yeah, so I used it in the intro and the outro. Um, and I have two different patterns for that. So I have one here, and then the second one is just one of the pads. And it's a different pattern actually. So here's what each one sounds like. So as you can see, it also moves from side to side, and it has a little bit of an evolving aspect to it, which does give movement to the intro and the outro where I've used this pad, and it is just an atmosphere preset, I think. Yep, just atmosphere. It's this and omnisphere, so whichever one you have or think are considering, they're both amazing. They have a lot of sounds that are useful for chill out music. This one is just a preset that I had tweaked the attack, I think, maybe some panning. I turned off one of the layers, so I just tweaked it a little bit. And for that, I used compression, some delay. I pushed up the low cut, as you can see. Again, I do that all the time. Resonant frequencies here, quite a lot of them, and a high cut, low cut, sorry. This is just a Sonalxus filter that I use. It's just a very light on the CPU. Highly recommended, very reliable. Does what it should do, and I used it, just for a simple high pass and a low pass on the pad, and just the gain. And it's, as you can see, it's routed to a reverb here, which I'll show in a minute. Let's take a look at the second pad, texture pad though. This is what it sounds like. Alright, so yeah, this isn't much of a pad, it's just you know, just some kind of whisper thing, just to, give it some movement, and fill the space again, fill the sides a little bit. Yeah, it's just atmosphere as well, and I think it's just in the ambient section, breathing air. So it's just air being breathed pretty much. Uh, and as you can see, let me just show this. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So we're on this one now. Some LFO tool to give it some movement from side to side. Again, panning and the bar every 2 bars. And some EQ, just some a low cut and resonant frequencies. Pretty standard. And I think this one was just in the nature of the sound to move between side to side, because I don't see any LFO tool on here. So I guess it's just how the sound is. It moves from side to side, which worked for me, I guess. Now moving on to the reverb. Um, Again, same preset probably. Again, I just gave it a little bit more high decay, and that's about it. Again, spread is on full, and I EQ'd for resonant frequencies, a low cut, and a boost in the, I'd say, high mids maybe. And that's it for the reverb. I didn't sidechain it, and the reason is because it just plays in the intro and the outro, and there is no beat there, so there's no need for a sidechain. Moving on, this is the second pattern I have for the texture pad, and this is what it sounds like. Yep, so this one takes a little bit more space in the mix, just so it can stand out on its own, and I think I play this in the very beginning. There we go. Um, or actually, rather here, the second part of the intro. Now, next up, we have, some more patterns. Okay, I think this might be for the outro. Let's take a listen. All right, so these are rather gated. Sounds gated to me. Um, yeah, and this is pretty much just because I wanted to give it a little bit more movement. So when it plays in the second part of the intro, which is here, this texture is gated, and this is what it sounds like on its own. It's again just an atmosphere preset here that I tweaked. All right, so it's gated as you can see, and the reason is again, like I said, just to give more movement. It sounds like it has a vocal aspect to it, and I found that it added a lot to the movement of the mix. So it does have quite some processing on it. First off, just some delay, standard, and some compression. I used the classic compressor because I think it had a vocal. Yeah, one of these. I think I used one of these presets, and I tweaked again. I tweaked it. Probably tweaked the release, the attack, the threshold, and the level. Volcano to give it some distortion. Yep. So here's what it sounds like without. Or sorry, wrong sound. All right, here's what it sounds like without. Now with it though, let me turn the filter up. So as you can hear, it does give it a little bit more, I'd say, edge or high end in the mix, which tends to make it cut through a little bit better. Again, just some EQ, just very basic here. A low cut and some resonant frequencies. Grow speed for the sidechain for the gating. Sorry, just this preset. Took down the volume because I felt that on the standard volume level, it was a bit too much gating, so I had to take it down a little bit. Uh, as I just showed, this is just a filter, like I mentioned before, and this moves it from side to side, 50% every bar, and just the final EQ for the gain here. Now moving on, we have the first pads. We went over those. These are actually more for the transition to the outro, meaning the bridge part here. So let's take a look at what that sounds like. Oh, actually, I guess I didn't use it because I don't see any here. I actually had this done for this section here, just the transition to the outro. It actually sounds like this. So as you can see, there are no pads in here. However, since my pads do have a lot of reverb and delay, I actually left the reverb and delay to fade out through this part rather than have this pattern play. So I should actually delete this. But yeah, I took it out of here because it just had too much pad presence actually, and I wanted the piano to have the spotlight. So I just left the delay and the reverb of the pads to shine while having the piano be highlighted in this part. So I'll just skip this. It's the same sounds. Piano. Uh, for this, I use Nexus again. I use this piano. It's the first time I used this preset. Never used it before. Did nothing to it aside from just a little panning to the left. The reason being the notes that it played. I noticed that on Nexus, as you play the higher notes, the piano seems to emulate a real piano, where it would sound a little bit more to the left or to the right. In this case, it was panned automatically, panned right. So I had to make up for that pan because I wanted the piano to sound central. So I panned it slightly to the left here, as you can see. Nothing else done except turning these off and having my own effects on there, which are just some delay, some compression, again, resonant frequencies, boosts in the highs, and a low cut. And I think this is some saturation just to give it a little more shine on the high end. I did not adjust the mix to full, so the wet dry is only at 70%. And I noticed that this did make the piano shine through the mix a little bit more. And we have some transient designer here. Just again, some transient shaping, more attack, and more sustain for the piano. And let's see. All right. Yeah, that's not the one I was looking for. Piano 2, I think is just. What is piano 2? Here we go. Again, it's the same piano, just a little bit lower cutoff, while this one is on full, as you can see. Again, I was too lazy to automate the cutoff, and I just had it playing in a certain part, so I just left it there. Again, same panning, and it's routed pretty much to another channel where the only difference is the gain boost. Which the piano in the main part needed a gain boost. This one didn't, so I just left it there. Otherwise, it's the same settings. And piano 3, again, it's pretty much the same. I used it in the outro, I believe. Let's check. Oh, here. It's in the middle of the beat, and it is the only difference is the volume. Again, just honestly didn't want to automate, too lazy. And we have the chord piano, which I just actually played here in the bridge. So let's take a look at what that sounds like on its own. So as you can hear, there is some automation going on here, and let's take a look at what that actually is. So first of all, the chord piano is the same preset that I've used before. The only difference is the processing. It's somewhat the same, but a little bit different. It's actually mostly the same. The only difference is what I automated was let's take a look, the bit crushing envelope. So as you can hear, there's some bit crushing of the piano going on here, and it goes down as the beat goes down, or it increases actually, and the bit crushing comes from here. So this is Sonalx's stereo filter 2, not 1, and I set it to the grind preset. And as you can see, the mix level is set. However, this is automated right here. So it's automated so that it decreases as the piano plays. And let's take a look at what this is. Oh, it's just the piano cutoff. I increased the cutoff of the piano from here onwards to full. So yeah, it does give a bit more movement to the piano here, especially that it's a transition, and didn't want to make it too boring. Just wanted to make it a little more interesting. So once again, it sounded like this. So the bit crushing definitely does give it a lot more movement. And all of these pianos are routed to the reverb right here. Again, decrease it's same preset, just decrease the decay, I think, or maybe put it up a little bit. I changed this value here. Instead of 6,000 something, it's now 5,000, and I put down the high ratio almost all the way down, because the piano tends to cloud up a mix if you let its reverb loose, pretty much. And now we just move on to the effects, which is actually more interesting than what it sounds like. I'll just make these very simple. The reverse crash is just Vengeance, has an EQ on it, just a low cut here and a dip in the mids, because it does matter. Sometimes I felt even though there's a low cut here, some frequencies around this area still do come through, so I had to take them down a little bit. Another reverse crash, it is the same one, it's just a different volume for another transition. Again, it's routed to the same channel, as you can see. Now impacts, we have a first impact here, which I increased the in envelope for, meaning it has less attack now, because I felt that again, in the nature of the sound, it had too much attack, and I also pitched it up to suit the feel of the track. So this is what it sounds like, just Vengeance Effects Volume 1, and just some EQing here, low cut, Compression. This is sample delay, meaning it emulates the Hass effect. If you're not familiar with what that means, the Hass effect is just basically splitting the sound into a left and right signal. You can do this in two ways. You can have the same sound twice, one panned left, one panned hard right, and then you delay one of the channels by a few milliseconds. It gives it a lot of width. Or you can just split the centered signal into a left and right signal, which is what this plugin does, and it automatically delays the left signal, I think, by default by a few milliseconds. As you can see here, it's just 10 milliseconds, and that's it. And some actual delay, ping pong delay here. And again, some transient shaping, less attack. Again, like I said, the sound by default had a lot of attack as it was, and gain. Moving on, impact 2. This should be 1. 1 here we have. Oh, it's the same one. Oh, we already covered that. Again, same one. Pitched up. However, I think volume is different. Again, for another transition, this is probably also the same one, again with a different volume. So yeah, 4 of the same impact with different volumes for different transitions. First uplifter we have. I don't have to play all of these, but just if anyone's interested in hearing them. This is from the Dave Parkinson Trance Essentials. Great pack, worth every penny. Go ahead and grab it if you haven't. Just a high cut here and just a gain. I'm sorry, that was a low cut and some gain. Now we have, I think, the same sound. Yep. Just again, different volume. I was pretty lazy with this project, honestly. Same sound, just a different volume again. However, yeah, just a different sound volume pretty much. And let's move on to the actual atmospheres that come in and out of certain parts of the track. First one is from Vengeance FX 2. Pitched it down here to work for the key. Obviously, with the atmospheric or tonal effects, you need to take into account the key of the actual sample. So you might like a sample, but if it's in a different key, you're gonna have to, change the pitch or the key of the sample to work for your track. So that's what I did. I tuned it down here, and I also reversed it because, without reverse, it sounds like this. But reversed, it sounds like. And I think I used this for the transition leading up to the bass part here. So yeah, there we go. That's one. Yeah, right there, before the bass part. Now moving on to now for this one I just have some delay, some EQ, a low cut, and gain right here. Now this is Now all of these are routed to a reverb send that I have for the effects. I think all of these effects are except for this one. It has its own reverb because this one didn't work for it. So, and again, I'm giving them reverb because I want them to blend in with the track. I don't want them to sound too dry. Within the context of a chill out track, you need some more blending in between the elements. So again, coming back to this for 2, it sounds like this. And I do have a few of these. I'm sorry, actually. I have, as you can see, there's quite a few of them here. 1, 2, there's 7 of them. Actually, 8 of them. The reason is each one is just a different pitch. So this one plays, I'm not sure what note this plays. This one. Just a second, sorry. So as you can see, each one has a different pitch. They're all in key with the track. I just used them in succession, and pretty much this is what they sound like. and that's it. Now I do have some of them in the outro as well, right here, and that's where the 7 and 8 come in. 7 and 8 here. I have a little bit more variety of them here, and they sound like this. And that's actually how the track ends if you check it out. So as you can see, they're all the same sample. They're all routed to the same channel, but each of them plays a different note. And I think that small details like that, do add a lot to the track. I think in terms of making the outro, because usually a lot of people skip the intro and the outro. But if you make it interesting enough, people will actually stay and listen for that long. And I did automate the volume. It's just a volume fade out here, so that by the end, it's just it just naturally fades out of the track. And let's see what we have on them. These are from the Wave Effects pack. Great pack for effects like this. Highly recommended. It just put some delay on it. Some standard EQ, and as you heard, the sounds were moving from side to side. So every 2 bars they'd move fully from left to right, and this is the volume automation here, and this is just the gain. And again, they're routed to the effects reverb, which I'll examine at the end. That moves us on to Atmosphere 3, which is also from the Dave Parkinson pack. Not pitched. I found it in the key of the track. And this is what it sounds like. So, as you can hear, it's pretty atmospheric and tonal in nature. I use this in the intro right here. And it's not technically actually in key with the track. However, well, it is in key, but it is not playing the root note of the track. It is actually in harmony. It's a harmonic third, I think, with the note. Let's take a look at what that sounds like. It is a third or fifth harmony, I think, maybe. But yeah, it works for the track. And again, it's just it has some delay, EQ, and panning, auto panning. This time though, every quarter of a bar, so it moves pretty fast between the sides. 40% though, so not too much movement, but it's often. Moving on to 4. Again, the Dave Parkinson one. I used a lot of atmospheres in there. It's amazing for atmospheres. Pitched it up here. Um, and as you can hear, this is in key with the root note of the track. Um, and however, I didn't use the full thing. I only used a part of it right here. So yeah, so I left a little bit out. And for this one, I have, you can call that, I guess, a notch filter, or a combination just between a low cut and a high cut. I didn't want it to take too much space, and I think this is just some saturation, yep. And again, movement between the sides, but every 4 bars, because it plays for pretty much, plays for a long time. So I wanted it to take its time to move, from side to side, and also that helps distinguish it from the other atmospheres that move a little bit more often between the sides. So just a little bit more contrast between the sounds, I guess. Now for 5, this is actually a sound that I've used in one of my previous projects. Had to pitch it up all the way though, almost all the way. And again, this plays in the bass part right here. Let me just look for it. Uh, yeah, right there. So this is. Let's take a look at what that sounds like. I'll just turn everything else off. So as you can hear, it is pretty present and just gives a little bit more harmony to the notes that are playing there, or the chords rather. Didn't have any, as you can hear, it's actually centered, so there's no movement between the sides. So it's just an EQ, it's just an EQ here, with a with a high shelf, just to take down some of the highs, because as you heard, the sample does have a little bit, does have some piercing highs, so I had to take that down. And as you can imagine, this is the biggest resonating note there is on that sound, so I took it down. Took down some mids as well, and a low cut, some delay here, and compression and gain. Again, I have it has its own reverb. As you can hear, this sound is more present than others in the mix in terms of effects. So I had to control its reverb a little bit more. So I made it. I made an individual reverb send for that one, which I edited. As you can see, the multiples, the high ratios are different here. The frequency limits are different. The decay is different. The spread and the low cut here. Again, some compression. I actually compressed this. The reason being, I wanted the reverb tail to come through a little bit better, because for the other sounds that don't have compressed reverbs, the reverb just blends in and provides some atmosphere. But I wanted this sound to specifically come through with its reverb intentionally. So I actually compressed its reverb send pretty heavily here. As you can see, the release is quite long. And some EQ. Didn't feel its reverb had enough high end, so I boosted it. And these are just some resonating frequencies here. And obviously a low cut for the reverb. Moving on to 6. We have another waves effects actually, and that's what it sounds like. I pitched it up, and actually I put the took a lot of the tail out, actually almost half. And let's just listen to what it sounds like. So as you can hear, it is again pretty atmospheric, interesting. It's not one. It's not like a monotonous note. It's actually a combination of different notes, with the root note being the most prominent. So it does provide some more harmonic depth to the atmosphere of the track. And this one just has some reverb on it. I'm sorry, some delay on it. Ping pong. I pretty much all the sounds I use have ping pong delay. Compression again, and some EQ here, low cut, and some resonating frequencies. Again, this moves between the sides, full movement every 2 bars. This plugin is very light on the CPU, and I was actually not interested in trying it earlier, but once I did, I've been using this on every sound I want to auto pan now. I used to do panning automation, with automation clips, but that takes a lot of CPU out. So this one is actually very light on the CPU, so I'm glad I found it. And again, this is just the game. Now, moving on to the last atmosphere, we have this is from the Muteki Media, I think, SOR effects pack, and that's what it sounds like. This is pitched up about one semitone, so about 100 cents, and I used it here right before the beat comes in. As you can see, it's pretty long, so I'm just going to stop it. And I used it in the outro as well. Now, as you can see, there's a combination 5, 4, 6, and 7, so it's just effects after each other, just, because I felt like just having pads there by themselves and textures wasn't enough. So I just added stuff that's moving more between the sides, just to make things more interesting, like I said, for the outro, so people would, continue listening. And for this one, I used some, again, ping pong delay, EQ here, and again, just some panning automation every 2 bars. And lastly, oh no, we still have the sub effects. I'm sorry, Dave Parkinson Trance Essentials again. Uh, it has a folder specifically for sub drops. I like this one a lot, but again, I felt like the tail, it was, too long. So I took out a little bit of the tail, and that's what it sounds like. So very subtle, and I'm pretty sure you can guess where that played. It's in the out bridge here. Let's see, just a second. Right there. So, yeah, just an EQ on that. Just a huge boost in the low end, but a dip in the gain because I felt that it didn't have as much low end as I wanted it to have, pretty much, because all the other elements that play in this part are high synthesizers. So we have the pad decay and reverb, delay and reverb. I'm sorry, and we have some piano here, some sweeps and effects, some atmospheres, but nothing really that fills out that low end. So this is pretty much the only low sound in that area. So it has as much room as as it needs to breathe in terms of low frequencies, and that's why I gave it a boost in the lows here. It did not clip. Had to make sure of that. And lastly, we have the vocal effects here. And for that, I used the Siren, Black Octopus Siren by Vila Pack. Great pack again. Just chopped this vocal up, and it's mainly for O's. I'm not sure if I actually. Oh, no, I actually did use it. It's right here. And by itself, it sounds like this. So as you can hear, it moves from left to right. It's panning automated though because I just wanted to move it from side to side once and not again. So I just put automated the panning here, and I put an EQ on it. All of these are resonant frequencies, and this is because it had too much highs, so I took them down. Delays, delay. Yeah, just pretty standard again. Put a phaser on it because again, giving it a little bit more flavor, so we can take a listen at what it sounds like with and without. This is with, and this is without. As you can see, it does change the actual nature of the vocal itself. And the reason I thought that this sounds better with the phaser is because without it, the vocal wasn't coming through. It was blending in too much with the other instruments, and it needed a little more separation. So I added the phaser, and it worked. For sure. And we have, again, the gain here, and that's pretty much it for the effects. It has its own reverb, though. Again, just some modified settings of the same preset. I think this is actually the same as the this one, maybe with a couple of tweaks. Not that I can see. Let's see. Nope, I think it's just the same one. Yeah, I just wanted to EQ the send differently, I guess. So I have some compression on here as well to get the reverb of the vocal to come through, and some pretty different EQ here, I think. Yeah, it's really different. There's a lot more resonating frequencies in this one that I had to take out, and I had to boost the low end a bit more as well. This one though is sidechained, the reverb, and the reason is because it plays it overlaps into the outro, and I wanted the transition to be smooth, so I sidechained it to serve as a little bit more of a I guess a smoothing element with the impacts. So it's kind of like pumps with the transition, the impact here. And lastly, we have all the automation clips, obviously. And lastly, we have the FX send here, which is, I think, the same as I just showed. Just probably, yeah, compressed differently maybe, and EQ differently for sure. Less, because these are mostly, because most of the resonating frequency EQing was done on the individual channels of each sound. I didn't have to do as much here, so I just did a little bit of taking out some mids and boosting the highs, and that is pretty much it actually. Pretty simple track. Not too much going on here, but I'm very proud of this one, and it's gotten me wanting to make some more chill out music. Honestly, I started this out inspired by the first Enhanced Chill compilation, which was in 2013. So as you can see, this project is pretty old. I started it, 2 years ago. But I didn't work on it that much until I actually wanted to finish it for this year's compilation. And that's when I started struggling, like I said before, with the intro and the outro. However, I did manage to thankfully finish it, and here we are. Thankfully, got some nice feedback, and I hope you guys like it. If you haven't checked it out, please do. I'll put a Beatport link in the description, and you can check the YouTube preview of it on my channel. Please share. Let me know your thoughts. Share if you think this is going to help someone else. And I would love to hear what you think. And if you have any ideas for future tutorials or walkthroughs, that would be very appreciated. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I've been recording for an hour now. Hope it wasn't too long, but I wanted to go step by step and sound by sound through this track. I don't see many chill out tutorials out there. And not that this is actually a tutorial, but I don't even see many chill out walkthroughs, production overviews out there. So I wanted to put this out, especially now that I've reached 1,000 subscribers, like I said, or followers rather, on Facebook. So thank you guys so much for the support, and I'm looking forward to hear what you think of the track when you check it out. And until next time, I'll see you guys soon.